Well, hello there, and welcome back to the very latest episode of my Love Machine podcast. Now, today we will be delving deep into the realm of relationships and explore the transformative power of reconnecting with ourselves. I'm thrilled to have Aline Ra M, a spiritual guide, healer, and teacher, joining us today as a special guest. Now, in this episode, we'll embark on a journey to unravel the secrets of true connection and discover how it all starts within ourselves. Alin is here to share her profound insights and practical wisdom, helping us pave the way towards genuine, heart-centered relationships. And she works to establish solid foundations for spiritual growth and soul fulfillment so we can heal our suffering, be our authentic selves, and live divinely and live in joy. Have you ever wondered why relationships can be so challenging at times? Why do we struggle with communication, misunderstandings, and emotional distance? The answer lies in our ability to connect with our hearts and live in alignment with our true essence. So, if you're ready to break free from the patterns that keep you from experiencing authentic and harmonious relationships, then this episode is for you. Get ready to gain clarity about who you are, trust your heart's whispers, and understand the true meaning of spiritual growth. Hopefully, you'll open your mind and prepare to embark on the transformative journey as we explore how to connect to your heart. Aline, how are you doing?
Oh, so happy to be here talking to you today, James. Thank you for having me, and what a beautiful intro.
I know I'm working on my intros. I'm making sure they get longer and more interesting to engage the audience. So anyone that's listening, tell me what you think about the intros. Are they too long? Are they too short? Are you enjoying them? Because I'm putting a lot more effort into that. So I think a special guest like you deserves a special intro.
Oh, you're doing a beautiful job. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me today. We spoke a little while ago before the podcast about what you've been up to and where you are, traveling around the world, all the various places. So can you tell everyone exactly who you are and what you do?
Yes, so I am a spiritual guide, healer, mentor, teacher. So I do quite a few different things, but all within the same core, which is supporting people to establish solid foundations for spiritual growth and self-fulfillment. And what I mean by that is solid foundations are those things that we think they are easy, we think we've got them, and because of that, we overlook them. So it's our ability to be present and connected to ourselves and to all those around us. Our capacity to create space in our lives, to not always be busy so we can see clearly. Our capacity to listen to ourselves, to be with ourselves, to breathe deeply so that we can relax. There's so many things in our lives that we just run over. For instance, doing the things that we love, doing the things that make us joyful, and instead giving to all these small things that actually just make us worried. So it is about returning to the basics, and the basics are not as easy as they sound. Yeah.
Right, that sounds absolutely fascinating, and probably a lot I can learn myself from this, because I struggle with those things myself. I think most people do, don't they, in general?
Absolutely. Life is so full of different things to pay attention to. If we allow society as it is today to, well, take our attention, so to speak, we live in an attention society, and it's so easy for us to get caught up and lose ourselves from ourselves. And spiritual growth is all about coming back to ourselves, to what is it that actually matters to us, to being more of who we truly are. So we work so much on the mind in a way, clearing our minds. We open our minds just so that we can open our hearts. So just that we can come back there. Yeah.
And what does that mean exactly about opening your heart?
Opening our hearts is about removing some of the walls that we have created around our hearts, the walls of protection. Love is an incredibly powerful energy, and sometimes it is so strong that we feel we cannot take it. We think it's going to overtake us. And that is not true. The reason why we can love so much is because we can love so much, because we are that love, but we have been scared of it. We have protected ourselves from it. We have run away from it. And opening our hearts is nothing but coming back to ourselves, because we are love. Now, when I say we are love, I don't mean the emotional love, the love that just wants to kiss and touch, you know. It is a much bigger type of love. It's a love that means understanding, compassion, acceptance. Love is consciousness, and it is the biggest energy in this universe. It is what creates everything.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I think this is a common issue that I see in my clients. In fact, what somebody yesterday came to me with the same issue. They built this wall up around themselves to protect themselves from being hurt. But really what happens is to stop someone getting close to them. So this wall works both ways, doesn't it?
It works both ways, and it works even both ways within ourselves, in the sense that we don't let anything come in, but we also don't let anything come out of us. So we have all these ideas or these things we'd like to give to others and creating this planet. But if we have walls, it cannot come through us, because life only happens through us.
Yeah.
So
So how do you break this wall down? What's your advice on that?
I work with that in many different levels. So, of course, it's beautiful that we can talk a lot about it. So it starts making sense. At the same time, we change it through actions and through exercises, and exercises on an energetic level, since that's a big part of spiritual growth itself, is understanding how energy works within us and how everything is connected in multiple levels. The heart center, the heart chakra, it has the element of air. It is governed by the element of air. Each chakra, each center we have in our bodies is connected to a different element. And we can use this information by understanding what this element is, the nature of this element. And when we think about air, the first thing is the lightness of the air. There is no stagnation in air. Things come in and things come out. And the connection to this, to the heart, is saying that a healthy heart is a heart that is light as a feather. Nothing stays in it. Everything comes in, everything comes out. So we can receive things and we can give things. And by things, I mean anything: beautiful words, a smile, presents, a touch, anything. And this in itself has so many layers that we can talk about how to actually deploy it and change to harmonize ourselves. A first point is just to understand how is our own harmony within giving and receiving. Some people are givers and some people are receivers. And this always creates some kind of stagnation that will hurt us. It is important to have this balance between giving and receiving. Now, here I mean really receiving, because some people can receive, say, a present, and the present is physically there, but they did not fully take it in that they received the present and felt the joy of having received love through something, and accepted that and seeing themselves as worthy. So this receiving is not the merely receive. The fact that somebody tells you a compliment doesn't mean you are receiving the compliment, because we can have a wall and not take that in. Yeah. So our ability to take things in and give anything, because the opposite also happens, where we want to give compliments, we want to give a touch, a kiss, but we don't know how we hold ourselves back. Or we give just for giving's sake, not from our hearts, just because we think it will please the other person, you know? It's just giving and receiving from and to the heart. Yeah.
I think compliments are, in terms of what I do, people do struggle to give genuine compliments to people and to receive them, like you said. I always ask people that in the session to say, do you give many compliments in life? And they say, well, I try to sometimes, but they find it awkward because they're not sure what the person's going to say. But I think receiving compliments is even harder, because I always try and, I don't really give compliments, but I say what comes into my mind. Like, I complimented you earlier about your tattoo, which is amazing on your arm. And that's not me giving a compliment, just me saying what I think comes out and being free to do that. Because you're not going to say, well, I hate my tattoo. How dare you? You're not going to say that.
Yeah, and that is what it means to do something from the heart, because the heart is not doing something to please somebody else.
Yeah.
It is generally doing it because that's the nature of the heart. It gives and it receives. So if we stop ourselves from giving and receiving, if we are only saying things to please somebody else, that is not from the heart. That is from the mind. It is trying to please somebody. So it's more about where we do things from, because we can do exactly the same thing, but it can be from the mind and it can be from the heart. And the heart is so genuine. It's nothing to do with the person receiving or or how they will take it. It is about, I appreciate that and I live life expressing my appreciations.
Yeah. How
Yeah.
do you become better at giving and receiving love then? Or compliments or anything?
Yeah, first we need to see what is it that we're lacking, right? Normally there is a bit of an imbalance. Some people are better at one and lacking in the other. So it is good to pay attention to where is it that we're lacking and start focusing on that one, trying to bring that one up. So for instance, when somebody gives you if you know you're not a good receiver and somebody's giving you a compliment, one thing that many people do is just reply a compliment right away. They are deflecting.
Yeah.
And try for a few weeks to not do that. Take a pause, a silent pause when you're receiving something and feel it. And say thank you as you feel it, not as an automatic response. The way of the heart, and this is another connection to the element of air, is the spaciousness. We need to create that space. We need to create that gap where we feel. So when we receive something, we might feel uncomfortable at first because we're not used to receiving. We might feel our nervous system a little bit like, a little bit of a shock wave. Oh, what do I do with that? And allowing ourselves to stay there for just a few 5 seconds. Take a deep breath, which is also connected to the element of air. Create the gap, that space in your heart to take that in, without reacting to it, without doing something right away, without saying thank you right away. Take a deep breath and stay with it. That is the way of the heart. It is spacious. Yeah.
How do you stop negative thoughts getting in the way?
You breathe.
Okay.
And you observe. You have to observe them. It is much trickier because the negative thoughts are coming from the mind. And the mind is very loud and the heart is whispering. It talks in a completely different volume because love will never shout at us. Just having that awareness that is a negative talk that doesn't have a good sound is a point to recognize that that is not coming from your heart. So the first thing is creating this awareness, like, no, this is my mind talking to me. This, you yourself, your essence lives in your heart. And I don't have anything against the mind itself. It's more that we have made it into a master instead of being a servant of the heart. And we need to start putting it back to its place. And when it talks to us like that, that's the first understanding. This is not my heart talking. This is not myself talking. This is my mind. And just creating that awareness. I am not my mind.
So the heart whispers to you and the mind
Yes.
shouts at you. Is that what you're
Yes.
saying? Okay.
Yes.
That's how you tell the difference.
Yes, and that also means there are a few different approaches that we can have when it comes to how to listen to our hearts. The first one is that we can engage in practices that reduce the shout of the mind. Now, the mind will never be completely quiet, but we can reduce it a bit. So practices like mindfulness and meditation and breath work, they support us to get self-mastery over our minds. We return to that point of understanding we are not our minds. Mm-hmm. So that is one approach. And then the other approach to listen to the whispers of the heart is through understanding certain qualities of the heart, such as this connection with the air, with the element of air, with giving and receiving, with breathing. We can do different breath exercises to connect to our hearts. We can work with our hearts through voice, through sounds, because this is also connected to the element of air. So singing, speaking, articulating ourselves, even to ourselves. It doesn't need even to be with another person, you know. It is very big to journal these days, you know, like free-flowing journal. And although this is a beautiful practice, it is still a very mental practice. Think about it. How many times you knew what you were going to say to somebody, and when you started saying it, all these different emotions came up. And it's like you couldn't just keep up your face, you know, you started like crying or laughing because the voice activates everything that is stuck in us. And so we can start clearing our hearts and through that connecting and listening to what is actually there.
I love the idea of singing because I sing all the time.
Amazing.
And I say if I'm in a bad mood, I'm singing. If I'm in a good mood, I'm singing. But if I'm not singing, then something's wrong. That's what I'd say. Because I think that's how I clear my energy. That's how I do it.
Yes,
I need to get everything
absolutely.
out. And it's a good thing for me. Because as anyone knows, listening to my podcast, I struggle a lot with journaling and meditation. And I really, really, really want to be able to do these things, but I can't. But I think it's not meant for me. So also talking aloud. I often talk aloud and I say things out loud, and I put on voices and do impressions and characters and things all the time, whether someone's listening or not. And maybe that's just me channeling how I should be and just getting my thoughts out and my energy out as well. Because I think energy comes into
Absolutely.
this quite a lot as well, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And the voice is a huge instrument of energy clearing, of energy transmutation. When we're talking so many different notes and sounds, and this is activating many things stuck in our being. So activating our voice through singing, through talking, to like just improvising sounds. This is massive in supporting us to clear stagnation. And remember the thing about the giving and receiving, it is about stagnation. It is if it is out of harmony, if something is stuck in there. So sounds can help us to move what is weighting us down. Yeah.
I love that. Many people have had some degree of heartbreak in their life.
Yeah.
Often they come to me because they're ready to move on and they're not really sure what to do and how to do that. How do you advise someone to open their heart if they feel they've been rejected or had some sort of trauma before? Because that's more difficult, isn't it?
It is, and it is not something we can take care of in one day. We can do certain practices and take care of ourselves. And everything in life is relationships, and it all begins with our relationships with ourselves. So how have we been treating ourselves, our own self-compassion in these moments, not to be so harsh on ourselves, and creating this, developing our self-love. Self-love is the core of personal growth, of spiritual growth, of empowerment, because it's coming from the place of loving ourselves so much that how could we not take better care of ourselves, you know? And from there we can do many more wise choices based on our own well-being, but from a place of love, not from a place of telling ourselves, I have to do this, I should do that, I'm expected to do that. It's just self-care.
How do you practice self-care yourself in your own life? What do you do in
Oh,
self-love?
oh, I do so many things. Even every morning when I wake up, I give myself a big hug, and I'm just grateful for this day. Gratitude is a beautiful practice for sure. Uh, I always had this thing since I had my first full-time job. So for me, when I had my first full-time job, it was a very stressful moment because I went straight to this job in a bank in a huge city. I had no control over my time. I was waking up and going to the office in this massive traffic jam. And I was miserable. I felt I did not have time for anything I wanted to do anymore. So I made an agreement with myself that I would never wake up and work for somebody else ever again. I was not quitting my job, quite the opposite. But I was a snoozer until then. And I started waking up 2 hours before I had to wake up just to allow myself to have my own time. And sometimes I would watch comedies in the morning, you know, I would read a book, I would just have tea. I didn't have like a spiritual routine back then on anything. It was just from this understanding that I want to live this life. This is my life. I'm going to live my life before I go to the office, you know? So creating this small awareness of what can I do to regain my life, to live my life? Because this is my life, like I feel like this is the core of love, loving life. Yeah.
I think that's a very, very attractive thing to have. If you love life, people will
Mm.
sense that and want to be part of your life as well, because
Yes.
they will sense it. And some people have a very dull, boring life, and they wonder why they can't attract the right person. So I always say, go out and get
Yeah.
some new hobbies, try some new things. I've got a
Yeah.
wonderful new client at the moment. He's booked up a different event every night of the week to go out there and try new things. Everything from tennis to salsa dancing to all sorts of weird and wonderful things. And he's not afraid to give it a go. I think
Yeah,
opening your
amazing.
heart is also true of opening your mind as well, isn't it? And being
Yes.
more being looking for the joys in life.
For sure. And opening your heart is a lot about that, opening to life, to living, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, those are so connected. Everything is that actually connected, right? The heart is a different type of mind, in a way, if we think about it.
Hmm.
Consciousness, pure consciousness. It's not as individualistic. It sees a bigger picture. It understands things much more lightly. So it's just a different type of mind, if we could say. Or maybe the mind is a weird heart. I don't know. I don't know how to put
And then
it.
there's the gut as well, the gut instinct. That is sort of somewhere between the
Yeah.
mind and the heart, isn't it?
Yeah, we do have multiple voices within us as well. And even our sexual impulses of reproduction, of needing to be liked and accepted, because otherwise we cannot continue living. So we do have multiple voices within us, and understanding accepting the existence of these voices and knowing how to listen to them and what they are trying to do. Because if we cannot do that, they start bossing us around pretty much. They take over.
Yeah.
And we need to understand that we're not these voices. We're something else. We're like the driver of the car, and then the gut is one will, the sexual instincts is another, the mind is another. It's just like you just have to pay attention to what is happening there. But at the end of the day, it is us with our hearts driving that need to take the decision.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Otherwise, it can be very confusing. You aren't sure what to do. You have to take
Yes.
control of you and then do what
Yeah.
you want to do, because ultimately it's your life. And I think
Yes.
bring all the things together. And I talk about this quite a lot, but talk to yourself in a kind way, whatever you say.
Absolutely. It is so much about self-mastery. And self-mastery is about knowing who we truly are, which is the core of spiritual growth. As we do all these practices and return to our hearts, the result of this is that we're actually looking spiritual growth is to be ourselves, to know who we are. What do I really want in my life? You know,
Do we ever really know that? Or is it an ongoing discovery?
it is a pretty long discovering, and of course, we are always changing as well. But we can definitely know ourselves a lot, more than enough to keep living in alignment. Because the more disaligned we are with who we truly are, the more stress we create, the more we suffer because we're not living the lives that we truly want. And
Wow.
at the end of the day, we don't need that many things, but we need the things that our hearts are calling for. If we don't give ourselves those, we create a massive amount of suffering in our lives.
Yeah. I think we know deep down what we want.
Mm.
And it's going for that is a different matter. But I think we know deep down what we should be doing and who we should be speaking to and all those sort of things. And I think
Yes.
sometimes just taking the first steps, as I always say, is the important part of that as
Oh,
you
yeah.
go forward. Now, part of your work is also spiritual as well, isn't it?
Extremely. I work much with energy as also as a healer, giving healing sessions both in
Yeah.
person and online. So
Yeah.
as I see it, everything is energy.
Mhm.
And even though we're living in a material world, everything comes from a seed. Just like we see a fruit, we see the apple, but everything just came from this seed of consciousness that was nurtured to the point that it could bear fruits, that it could grow so much.
Yeah.
So seeing the invisible behind the visible, because changing the invisible, changing the feeling, changing where we do things from, changing our understandings is what changes the real physical thing. Not to say that the invisible is not real, everything is real in the same way. It's just some things are not so much in our faces. We need to go a little bit deeper because that seed is inside of us.
So how do you work with that? Is it Reiki? What sort of things do you do?
Yeah, I do many different type of healing sessions. I think like 10 different ones, so they're very different in scope.
Wow.
I do the most famous ones like Reiki and crystal healing, but I also do some that are extremely specific that require high level of energy manipulation from my side. So I can remove negative energy from people. I can cut emotional cords. So for instance, if a person has gone through trauma and is in a very crystallized pattern in their minds, they cannot release from a situation. I can go there and cut that emotional pattern, the emotional overload. So the situation itself keeps on existing, but not the emotional overload, which allows them to have a breather to create a better pattern. I can also connect people more to their souls, making more of their higher selves calm down, which means they have more clarity of what is a yes or what is a no, what is their next step. Things just become clear of who they truly are. So those are just a few examples, but yeah, just so you understand, there's quite a few different possibilities out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I presume you have to do these face to face. You can't do them all over Zoom, for example, can you?
I can send energy to clear a person online, doesn't matter where they are. So I
Really?
can I can clear people's energies. But those that are very like energetic manipulation type, then I need to go in the person's energy field because I need to take things out from there very
Yeah.
specifically. Yeah.
Let's talk about the clarity one that you just mentioned, about how someone can resonate with their higher self and be in touch with that. Is
Hmm.
that something that anyone can do if you teach them? Or is it a very skilled thing that's impossible to do?
It is possible to do, but there are definitely procedures that we can go through that help us much more. So I've been on this path for a long time in schools that are based on initiations. So we go through chemical processes in our field that allow much more light to come down. And that is a huge catalyst of spiritual growth. Now, I take this path and I recommend people to take this path. This is my personal journey for over 2 decades now. That said, I also help people that are remotely working with me. And we can do that. We can bring more clarity because we can come back to the heart.
Mhm.
Clarity is a result of self-connection. It is not something that comes from our minds. It is something that comes from us knowing ourselves better, from us knowing what is a yes or what is a no, understanding what is good for us, what we should keep away, from self-love, so we don't put ourselves in bad situations. So there's a series of virtues that we can develop in everyday life that support us to have clarity and creating spaciousness or not taking ourselves so seriously as well. Being able to play more. There's so many things that we can do. And this I'm talking more in a rational level, but of course, there are many practices that we can do. We can work individually at our homes to boost and energize certain energies in our field to have more clarity. So, as a spiritual guide, even though I talk to my clients, what I do the most is give them practices that they do every day because that changes who they experience themselves to be. Technically, we are already everything, but where our attention goes, that is what grows.
Mhm.
So, if we're stuck in patterns and ways of living, then that is the part of us that we get to see. And by doing different practices that catalyze other parts of us that we have diminished, these parts get to grow and get to shine much more in our lives.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And then that's great things to think about. So I wanted to tailor towards this another question.
Yeah.
How do you do all this stuff when it comes to relationships and making better choices in terms of people that you're dating? How do you connect and reconnect and know if someone's the right person and put yourself out there if you're a bit nervous?
Well, the first thing is we need to be in this place of self-love, right? So that we're not going for something to compensate for something that is not okay in our lives.
Mhm.
Um, I believe love is nourishing. Love is an energy of nourishing, and love wants to grow. So if we are with somebody that we need to be in a very specific way that we don't want to be, if we need to start changing things of who we want to become, because we are all on a journey of growth, right? I mean, I'm happy with who I am, and at the same time, I know what I would like to improve in my life. Mm-hmm. So the person that I'm seeing should be a person in alignment with that.
Yeah.
A person who is also good where they are and also wants to grow, and we can see things through similar lenses. It's nice to have certain differences to complement each other. But if we're going towards different ways, then that is a little bit of a tricky territory, because one person might have to adjust to the other a bit too much. No. And of course, there's always a certain adaptability. We are sovereign beings, but we live in synergy. And that is the complex thing about life. And I know that is both at the same time. Mm-hmm. It is not only synergy and it's not only sovereignty. It's fine-tuning this balance and being in a romantic relationship, be with the people at our work, with everything. This is a huge part of growing as a human being. Now, that is what I would say first, that it is very tricky. And I have been in relationships that ended because I wanted to grow so much and the person did not want to grow and they couldn't understand why I wanted to change so much. So having certain values aligned definitely saves us a lot of trouble and makes us see whether we are with the right people, or are we here just because we don't want to be alone.
Yeah. Values are the first thing on my worksheet that I work with all my new clients, because working out what your values are, because everyone gives me the same ones initially, but we have to work on that, then work out interests and work out all the things that you want and make sure that you are aligned completely. Because and the only way to discover this, I think, is to go out there and just date lots of people initially and to have some adventures and see what's out there. You don't have to find the perfect person immediately if you're newly single. Go out there and experiment, because life is short and life is for living. So great advice there. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Now, we've come to the end of the time already. I know we could just talk for hours and hours and hours. I know it's amazing, isn't it? But hopefully we'll do this again. I know time is whizzing by. I love it when conversations do that. I know we'll do another one soon, hopefully on YouTube, and do a video one. And we'll go a bit deeper onto this. But thank you so much. If someone wants to find out more about you, how do they find you?
We can go to my website, alinra.com. And I have also a few free ebooks and resources if you would like to go deeper into, for instance, mindfulness, going back to doing things that you already do, but from the heart space. I have a 7 days of mindfulness program that is free for all. You can find it at alinram.com/7 days of mindfulness. So 7, the number, not written down. So 7 days of mindfulness. And that can be a beautiful journey to begin with.
Maybe I'll download that myself. Get me started on that. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And I really want to keep talking, but I'm very much aware that you've got a busy day ahead of you. So thank you very much. And we'll talk again soon.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you today.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening. I'd love to give you a free copy of my latest book, which you can download right now from my website, jamespreece.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, I'd really appreciate it if you could share the love by taking a few seconds to write a positive review on the iTunes store right now. See you next time.